So do you want to talk a little bit more to architecture now, or do you want to
Yeah,
move on?
I'd love to. So when you think about architecture, what you really think about to get the full advantage of the cloud is you want loosely coupled components, right? So the reason that loosely coupled components didn't really work in the past was it was just too expensive to do it. Everything, the cost of an operating system and spinning up different apps, you couldn't really have independently deployable and independently testable components because the cost would have been astronomical.
Right.
The beauty of the cloud is that it allows you to do all these things. It takes your architectural quantum from this down to this. So now all of a sudden, I have all of these new options available to me. And if I can take my architecture and reduce the quantum size to something that's very tractable, the world is my oyster at that point. Then that is when I actually get the advantage and all those benefits. I've turned that dial up.
So we do a lot of work with defense programs, and there's a lot of questions that swirl around about how it can be a lot easier to grok the idea of cloud migration in the context of enterprise systems or even command and control systems. But let's talk about embedded systems environments.
Yeah. That's something I actually particularly love to talk about because I recently did a embedded project last year at the SEI, and we used a bunch of cloud technologies. One thing people often forget is where your software is actually deployed is about this much of this, right? Your whole development process can take huge advantages by moving it to the cloud. You have things like source control servers, you have build pipelines, you have dev environments that can be automatically configured in the cloud. You can do things like run your embedded things in containerized environments that can also be tested in the cloud. I think it's really important to not couple where your app is going to eventually reside with the development and testing practices.
Right. So I think that's one thing. I think it would be helpful to get people to understand what we're talking about in architecture. So it's not just, a lot of people think about in cloud, they talk about the three models: infrastructure as code, platform as a code, services, software as a code. And the world's changed so much since then. When you start talking about containers and different things, microservices, there's so much more that you have to think about when you're architecting your system. So that's one thing that when we talk about architecture, we're talking about getting a very good context of what you're trying to do. Developing context diagrams, understanding your stakeholders, having multiple views of that architecture from their point of view, and being able to walk through things we call mission threads to go end to end, or your workflows, so that you can understand that vision, get that vision of what you want to build. That's key, because then you can figure out where things can go and work best.